say that I would come back to you and try and gig this guitar and tell you what I thought of it. I bought this guitar maybe a few weeks ago, and I thought that's a kind of cool looking guitar. I wonder if it's any good. The Ibanez Geos that I played in the past, sort of the very low end Ibanez's, were not really, in my opinion, particularly great guitars. So I bought this one thinking, I wonder if that's any good, or whether it's just, you know, like a pretty looking Ibanez Geo. I think you may or may not agree. I think it looks fairly decent as a guitar. But yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts after gigging it. Let me know in the comments if you've had bad experiences with an AZES. I've got no real vested interest in this guitar. I don't have anything to do with Ibanez. I just wanted to share some thoughts on it. I'm imagining that quite a lot of the reviewers who might have put up glowing reviews of these may not have tried gigging them, but I have now. And aside from the trem, you know, I'll talk about some of that in the video, but I just wanted to share that. So let us know in the comments if you've had bad experiences. I guess kind of the good thing with buying a guitar like this is you can pretty easily return it if you buy it from somewhere like Tom or GAC or wherever. But yeah, okay, so I did kind of say that I would report back on this guitar. Yesterday I got a chance to play it at a wedding, and I thought I wanted to try and take this guitar and see if it will hold its own for a gig. So typical kind of wedding party function band type stuff, you know, so a mixture of kind of rock tunes and all that sort of stuff, and I'm pleased to say I think it did a perfectly decent job. And that leads me to kind of, you know, ask you, what's the cheapest guitar that you've kind of gigged if you're like a professional musician? Have you got cheap guitars which are your kind of go-to brand that you might recommend? I know for me the Sire guitars sort of like double the price of this, but still around that £500 mark, so, you know, relatively cheap. This Ibanez AZES was about £269 I think, but could get you through a gig. And, you know, maybe if you had a flight gig, you know, where you had to take a piece of gear on a plane, and, you know, you didn't want to take your precious K-line or something, you could take something like this, and pretty decent general purpose tool. You know, maybe if you're teaching, you need to travel around on tube or subway, these sorts of things where maybe it's, you know, potential that things could go wrong. You don't want the most expensive guitar that you've got going with you. This could kind of fill that role, I think. The tuning, when you're not using the tremolo, is stable. Better tune actually. Stable, but, you know, stable enough. And I think the pickup so the tune is stable. Now I'm struggling to get it in tune. You know, it cleans up on the volume knob. And I think the in-between positions are pretty cool. It's not buzzing all around the fretboard, there's no kind of high frets. And the other kind of key thing with this guitar that I like about it is it's got a really comfortable neck. It's not one of these kind of pencil thin necks that you get on some of the Squier Classic vibes. It's just a pretty kind of, you know, medium C, just really in that kind of sweet spot for me. Frets aren't, you know, badgering me, and all in all, a pretty decent guitar for the money. I gigged it and didn't have any issues with it, so that's kind of the report on that. Other kind of things in this kind of price range, maybe a Yamaha Pacifica. I think those are really well built for the money as well. I don't think they look necessarily quite as cool as these. That's one of the other things about this guitar. I think it looks really good for a cheap guitar. Sometimes cheap guitars have like dodgy pickup rings and all that sort of stuff. So although it's kind of not necessarily the most flash looking guitar, I think it looks good enough that you can kind of gig it, in my opinion. Anyway, so yeah, that was my kind of gig report on the Ibanez AZS. It holds its tune fine if you're not using this trem. If you're going for a guitar with kind of heavy trem use, or even medium trem use, I wouldn't necessarily recommend one of these, at least not without the attention of a tech. But I did want to kind of report back because I've gigged the guitar now, and I was using the Mesa Boogie Mark 525, and I thought it did a really good job and would happily gig it again. So that's the verdict on that. Cheers.